For today, in case anybody didn't see the notice on LinkedIn, today is an open Q&A day. So no specific topic that we're going through today, no speakers, just open Q&A. So it is 12 o'clock, a little bit after, so might as well just open it up. Does anybody have any questions or things that they would like to walk through today?
I do, actually.
Sure. Hey, Katrina. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. I've been studying for the Platform App Builder cert, and it has been the bane of my existence and kicking my butt. So I have an object and relationship, basically. It's a question about relating accounts and contacts and the proper way to do it, best practice. So I've seen the question a couple of times. I'm not going to quote it exactly because I know that's not allowed. But if you have a company and it's company A, and they're relating to another company, company B, and they bill company B, and company B has representatives on it, what is the proper way to relate those two accounts? So it's getting into stuff like lookup relationships, master detail, that sort of a thing. And it also quoted like account teams, account hierarchy. It gets in the weeds. And so I was just curious if you had any thoughts on best practices for that type of a situation.
Yeah. So I'll say a few things, then we can open it up to see if anybody has any additional feedback. But I guess like in Salesforce, just like in anything else, there's probably 400 ways that you can do something. So kind of thinking through this one, like internally, we have customer accounts, and then we have maybe partners that we're working with on that account. So it's kind of like there's my company, there's the customer company, and then there's this related kind of third-party company that we're trying to all map together. Just give me one sec here a bit. So one way that I've seen that implemented is you think about your account, your customer account, and if there was a lookup field to, maybe you call that lookup field like implementation partner, right? Or you know, a lookup that's called like billing service, whatever it is, right? And you would actually select that other account on that field for the client account. That's one way I could see it being done. The other way is when we're working with individual humans from other accounts on a particular client. So a good example would be we have a customer that was referred to us by a Salesforce account executive, right? So in that case, we have that Salesforce account executive as a contact underneath the Salesforce account. And then on our client account, we actually have them as a related contact where they're actually listed there as a related contact, but they're not created as a brand new contact. They're not linked as a lookup field or relationship. It's that special related contacts related list that we would use in that case. So that might be, that's kind of two variations there. Does anybody else have any other thoughts about that?
Yeah, Bill, can you also enable Experience Cloud in your org? I mean, you would have to pay for all the licenses and everything, but that's just also another way to integrate external accounts, right, with other companies and everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I could see that. Now that is definitely a topic in and of itself. In the context of platform builder,
community cloud, experience cloud, yeah.
Because I can see how that like you talk about like partner accounts and things like that, and linking them as partners to an account.
Yes.
I mean that's
portal, community portal, things like that.
Yeah. Now that, like I said, that's I'm going to write that down because that can actually be a whole entire topic of just like Experience Cloud and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's a certification within itself, actually, in the consulting realm of things. So, yeah.
But yeah, no, that's good. Any other thoughts as far as other feedback on that kind of situation, relating accounts together? Either just
I have a quick comment.
Sure.
That exam was also the bane of my existence. I work in app development, so for me it was really personal. Like I need to get this certification to kind of back up what I do for a living, kind of a thing. So I ended up taking it without studying it for it, just to see, how I do, failing it. Studied it some more, failed it, and then got serious, and then last week ended up passing it. And I remember that question. And I, after each exam, I would kind of write down notes and look stuff up in documentation to kind of see, if I could read up a little bit on things I wasn't so sure about. And the question talks about, how do you configure for a business that has customers that sell to dealers? And, each customer or dealer has its own representative and they're billed separately. Do you do account teams? Do you do account hierarchy, or do you do something else? And I didn't really understand the question fully. What I did, and I just looked up documentation. I read about person accounts. I read about contacts to multiple accounts. I read about account hierarchy, and I read about account teams. And I really got in there and got to know the material, got to know some of the nuances and use cases between these things, and what the purpose of each feature is. For example, like the main purpose of account teams is to enable collaboration. How does that fit within a question like that? Is that is that what we're trying to accomplish here? Is it collaboration, or is it something else? So I would recommend.
Was that my audio that cut out, or was that Catherine's audio that cut out?
Catherine's audio.
Catherine's audio.
Okay, because I will recommend it, and then it cut out, and I was like, don't leave us hanging on the edge here. Catherine, can you still hear us? Okay, we'll give Catherine a few minutes to try to reconnect, because we can't hear you, Catherine. Okay, so we'll give her a few seconds. One thing I will say, Katrina, just there's a few things that were mentioned that Catherine mentioned that I thought were pretty important. The one is kind of that example that I mentioned about being able to relate a person from another account to some other account that you're working on. So if you guys don't mind, I'll just run through a very quick example of what that might look like. So I'm going to move you all to the top here. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna create an account here called customer account. All right, and within this customer account, I'm going to have a contact, which is Pete Nick customer, who's part of the customer account. All right, and then we would also have another account, and let's just call this my my partner account. Okay, and within that partner account, I have another contact here called Megan Mick partner. Okay, and there you go. Now the issue comes in. Okay, so I have this customer account that I'm working with, and there's Pete. But what if I wanted to relate somebody from my partner to this as well, like somebody that I'm working with on the account who's part of that partner? As it stands, kind of out of the box, you can't do that, right? I mean, if I go over here to to my Megan Mick partner, I can't just connect her to two accounts at the same time through a single lookup field. And that's where what Catherine mentioned, there's this setting. If you go into setup and you search for account settings, they have this allow users to relate a contact to multiple accounts. All right, so if I were to check that, or if I click edit here and then check that, and then click save, this is where whenever you see this word threatening thing that's stresses you out, you got to make sure you're in your sandbox work and not like some customer work that I forgot to log out of. Okay, there we go. So if we enable that setting, what I can do then is we can go to there's a couple things we need to update before we can take advantage of it, or at least we need to validate it. So if I go to account and I go to page layouts, I always click on the page layout assignment button, and that way I can see exactly who's assigned to what, and then just click on it from here so we make sure we update the right one. And if I go to my related list, you'll see not only do we have that context related list, but now there's this kind of cool one called related contacts. All right, so I'm going to throw that onto my layout, and I'm going to save that. And then I should be able to go to my contact layout from this side, contact, and look at my related list. I'm assuming it's this one, this page layout. Go to our related list, and there should be a related accounts. So we're going to drag that on here now as well. So the theory here is that for a contact record in Salesforce now, you still have the primary account that they're related to. So for example, for Megan, she's still related to the partner account, But what I can do if I refresh now, I should see that new related list that's available. So we have this related accounts. I can add a relationship now. So I can say Megan is now related to that customer account as a, you can modify this list here. We could say she's part of like an influencer, right? So I'll save that. So now that person, Megan, that's a partner, is not only related to the partner account as the primary, but she's also now related to the customer account as like a secondary resource or a related contact here. All right. So that could be one way that you could relate like partners, people from other accounts to another account that they might be helping out with and working on. So I hope that helps. Make sense?
Sorry, I went on mute there. That was very helpful. And thank you for both of you walking me through that. I think just the complexity of how these relationships can be formed, it's hard to picture it sometimes. So it was helpful for you to walk through that with me. So thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
And
yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, no, that's actually really cool because, like today's world, a lot of us can work as 1099 employees. Maybe we're working for two different companies. And I mean, I don't know, right? It's possible, right? So you can be related to one account and another account also, right? At the same time. I guess that would be the idea over here.
That's the theory. Yeah.
Okay.
And just I don't know if we need to go. The use case here where we had our customer account and we related somebody from a partner, that's one thing. But the other use case I mentioned, where we talk about specifically relationship fields, let's just say that we have another account here called Billing Helper Inc. Right? So they help customers with all their billing needs, right? Whatever that is. So what you could do, if we go back to setup here and we go to our account object, assuming this renders any second now, there we go. So account manager and then accounts. Did I say account manager? Object manager. All right, so on the account object, then we can create a new lookup field. Now we're going to use a lookup because not every account is going to have this field filled in. So we're not going to create a master detail. We're not trying to build, some kind of, account hierarchy. It's not really what we're looking to do. But if we create a lookup field and we call this is related to account, and we're going to call this, instead of just the default account, we're going to call it billing company, or maybe billing managed by, and of course, there we go. And then this thing here, so billing managed is going to be the name of my relationship. And what? Oh, I guess you have to have underscores. Let's try that. There we go. Okay, and we'll assign it to everybody. We'll add it to the layout. So now in this case, so wait, this is related list label, I don't know, managed accounts, something like that. Okay, so now if we go back to our customer account that we have, and we're trying to identify, how are they related to these other accounts that we have in our system, we now have that field for billing. Maybe we don't have it. So Shift F5 should refresh and caching and all that good stuff. But if we refresh here on our account layout now, we should see that billing managed by field, unless it was already there and I just didn't see it. There we go, billing managed by. So now that's a lookup to accounts, and I can say Billing Helper Incorporated is managing the billing for this customer account, and I can click save. So now this account, customer account, is now linked to that other account. And if we were to go over to the other account, the Billing Helper company, whatever that company is, and we look at the related list, we should see that they are managing the billing for, and then you can see the list of all the companies that they're managing billing for. So again, another way to kind of look at that use case.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That really, it does help.
Yeah, no worries.
But Bill, this is actually a good idea. Like if you just are trying to relate, let's say one contact to an account, but let's say if you work at another company and let's say that you are involved with that other person, but his boss also wants visibility and his whole team wants visibility in your company when it comes to, let's say, managing whatever record that you're doing. That is really where Community Cloud and Experience Cloud comes in full blown. You can assign them permission sets, give them record sharing access. It's just very powerful, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to kind of speak to that. So in this particular use case, this is like our company. We're trying to manage our data, how the relationships are, kind of map everything out. The use case you're describing, it's kind of that, but it's also now you're granting access to those folks to help you manage that customer account.
Right.
So that would be the use case where, Billing Incorporated, you can grant them access through the partner portal that for all the accounts that they're managing billing for, they can see the account records and all the details underneath of that. So yeah, like I said, that I think that's a whole nother conversation to get into that. And setting that up, I don't think that's probably one I wouldn't be able to do on the fly. I'd have to dig into some of the documentation to Catherine's point before I could set that up here. But cool, yeah, great feedback on that one from everybody. Andrew, Catherine, thank you. But yeah, I guess we'll open it back up. Any other questions, either on that topic or just in general?
So Bill,
Yeah.
if I could just jump in, I jumped on a couple of minutes late, but did you cover partners on the account record? There's also a partners related list. I don't know that
we did not. No, we didn't. Do you want to kind of speak to that? I can share my screen.
Can you show your screen again? Yeah, so there's a partners related list on the account record. It's right where your cursor is. Yeah, so you can add or relate counts that way too as well. And it also has the role.
Now, let me ask you a question. What would be, so this would be the situation where, okay, let me take a step back. So when we're talking about the related contacts where we can link people from another account to this particular account, that's why we would use related contacts. Partners is almost a similar thing, but that's where we would want to relate account records to this account. We could have multiple account records kind of listed there and their kind of role on this account. So if I were to go over to this customer, instead of doing it as kind of a lookup field like I have here for the billing managed by, what we could actually do, or another way that we could do this would be to go down to partners, create a new partner, select that billing helper, and then for the role, we might have a role in here that's called billing, something like that. And then we can save that, kind of like that. And then I'm assuming, and it's been a while since I've looked at this and I completely forgot it. Thank you, Jade, for bringing it up. But if I were to go over to billing helper here and look at related, we can now see the flip side of that relationship. So if you noticed here on the customer side, that relationship, they're related to billing helper and the role of supplier. But when we go over to billing helper and look at it from this side, we can see customer account and the role is retailer. Now, I'm assuming there's a place in setup where we can manage those relationships, right?
Yeah, there is.
Anybody know how to spell partner, first of all?
Well, the last time I checked, you had to flip over into Classic. I don't know if it's changed recently, but you have to go into Classic and then set up.
Oh, that would be awful. That would be awful if we have to do that. I will consider that a failed day if we have to go in the Classic.
But that's the last time I looked at it, but
that's sad. That's really sad. All right, let's take a look. So if I go into, let's get everybody out of the way. So switch to Salesforce Classic. Oh, that's ugly.
And then you go to setup and then partner.
Just in the quick find here.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I think there's something partner roles. There it is.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So here's that related list or that list that we're talking about. So if you were to create a new one, you have to define both sides of the relationship. So for example, what's a good example of a relationship with flip sides? I don't know. Like you can say it's the dad and then the reverse role would be child, something like that. So when you're looking at it from one side, maybe just parent would be the better approach here. So you can see it, if you're looking at it from the parent, you're going to see the relationship as child. And if you're looking at it from the child, you would see the relationship as parent. Bad example, it's not to manage like family relationships, but you get the idea. You define a relationship and you have the main name and then you have the flip side of it as well over here. So yeah, no, that's great. It's great that you brought that up. It's not great that you have to switch in the Classic to get to this. I feel like you have to be able to get to that from Lightning. Okay. So any questions on that as far as the partners related list? Another great one to be able to kind of define those relationships.
Bill, can I ask you something else?
Sure. Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay. So usually very general stuff. So usually Salesforce does a very good job with their trails, right? It tells you exactly what you need to know if you're trying to, say study for a certification, right? And like say you're doing a particular module, it will tell you like, hey, don't do this module unless you've done the one before this, right?
Okay.
It does a very good job with that. Yeah. So hypothetically, say I want to study for the Platform Developer 1 certification, right?
Yeah.
And it's all Apex and everything, right? But it seems to me when you do those modules, it seems to me I need to know a little bit of Java before I start thinking I want to be an Apex developer. Does that make sense? Here's why I say that. So what if somebody just finished their admin certification? They just came into IT. They did the admin certification. They're like, hey, I want to learn how to code. Oh, you can be a developer in Salesforce. So, but Salesforce kind of, when you take the recommended trail that they give you to study and everything,
yeah,
they start from teaching you about Apex, but not Java. Like, I mean, because you have to know Java to do those trails, actually. Otherwise, you're just going to be lost. Yeah, no, you do. So my question is, well, two questions. So is there something in Trailhead that just talks to you about just programming? I know there's a couple of trail mixes and everything, but like, is there something like more on like the official side of Salesforce where you can learn how to code? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But let me kind of take a step back there, right? So I think the thing to consider is that Apex is Java-like in its syntax, and JavaScript is Java-like in its syntax. But each of them are their own completely separate standalone programming languages, right? So what language you choose to learn programming skills, you could, in theory, start with just Apex and have no idea about JavaScript or any of that stuff and just learn development straight up pure Apex. On the flip side, but that's kind of the server side programming language. On the other side, you can know absolutely nothing about Apex or Salesforce or anything else, and you can learn all of your development skills or the basic concepts using just JavaScript, right?
Right.
So I think I don't think you have to start with one or the other. I think if you're going to pick one, you can learn all the same kind of syntax and key functionality, like for loops and whiles and if statements and that kind of stuff. But to answer your question about Trailhead, I honestly don't know. So like if you go into the Apex development, like a triggers module, are you basically saying that you were kind of hoping that they would have like you should know this before you actually try to tackle that?
Yeah. So you see, no, I'm actually not talking about JavaScript and Java. I know those are, one is front, one is back end. I'm just talking about the platform developer certification, right? Yeah. You know how every certification has a recommended trail, right, within it, and it tells you, hey, do this trail to study for the exam. So to me, that tells me, hey, this is all I need to know to pass this exam. If I need to know Java, it will teach me about Java. If I need to know about object-oriented programming, it will tell me about that. But there's like, so click on it. Yeah, it's interesting, but I just, so study and prepare, right? It just tells me, okay, everything I need to know to pass this is all right here.
Yeah.
Okay. And you click on that and it just starts talking about, what classes are and what it is. And I mean, that's not the kind of very basic stuff that it's not very basic. I mean, there's one should know what a variable is and what a for loop is, just things like that, right? It doesn't really talk about that. Like, I'm not saying, I mean, of course, you can know any programming language and you can pass the Platform Developer 1 certification. But what if you don't know anything about programming?
That's a good point.
Where do you go?
Let's take a look at the guide here. Does it say that as a prerequisite? Because a lot of times they'll say it in the guide, like you should have X number of years, like doing this.
Okay. Then maybe I missed that.
Let's just take a look here. Audience description. Yeah. So Platform Developer 1 generally has 1 to 2 years of experience as a developer and at least 6 months of experience on the Lightning platform. Candidate has the following skills. Okay. So I think that's where it starts getting into like, you should have some prerequisite skills in
Ah.
development before you would tackle this.
Okay,
This
I missed
trail.
that then.
Yeah.
The devil is in the details. Okay, I'm sorry about that in that case. And
Yeah.
then that makes more. Okay, so I assume every certification has a disclosure where you need to know certain things before. Okay, understood.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Okay,
so.
I'm sorry about
Now,
that.
no worries. Now, if I was giving advice to somebody that had no idea about development and was just jumping in for the first time, if I had to pick one language to start learning from scratch, knowing nothing,
Yeah.
personally, I would say JavaScript. I feel like that's at least on the Salesforce platform, that's going to give you the most bang for the buck. You learn all the basic concepts, plus JavaScript is used everywhere, including places not Salesforce. So I think like if I was going to invest my time and I had to do it all over again, I would start with JavaScript.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
And if I posted that statement online, it would start, a very controversial discussion probably. So
Right. Thank
you. I'm going to be the skunk at the party. Bill, can you share that screen again?
I would love to. Yes.
Okay.
So
I'm going to be the skunk at the party about people who've never been in IT hopping in and being developers.
Yeah.
One of the things that's implied is that you are first a good admin. If you look at each of those things, it says know the capabilities of the core objects in the Salesforce schema. You get that from having been an admin for a while. Know when to use declarative versus programmatic methods. You get that also from having been an admin for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I'm saying that is because my hard-lived experience has been that people who decide they're going to be programmers and they're doing it on the job, there is no, as what one World War II admiral called makey learny. You can makey biggie messy. And then what happens is that that company or that org has to hire a really expensive set of Apex developers to clean up what was left. Okay. Now, if you go down a little bit more where it says no when to use declarative, again, don't create things that Salesforce already has. Don't use Apex in place of account teams or anything like that. That's a major league sin. And you will learn all of that by having been an admin for a while. So please, I'm begging all of you who have the idea you're going to be a developer, please be an admin for a while, because otherwise you're going to damage your reputation. You're going to leave a huge mess behind when you leave. And if you're really unlucky, you'll get fired. And I mean, I've seen all of that happen, and it's really ugly to watch. Really, the best thing that you need to get underneath, it's like the Russian army right now. They're a mess because they don't have non-cons. Okay. They don't have the people who do the maintenance on their, who do the training, who do the maintenance on all of their equipment. And so right now they're in combat and they're falling apart. You will be the equivalent of that. You will be missing a serious part of that, of what you need to become a good developer. If your mind works that way, more power to you. But please spend some time being an admin and learn about what it is to be a good admin, and also good governance and good security. Because you also don't want to, have code that is just, full of security holes. That's just not good either.
Yeah. So just to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I hate to be the skunk at the party, but just deciding you're going to hop in, is not a good idea, and your name will be mud.
Yeah. Well, a few things there that I'll add on to that. Skunk at the party. I wrote that down because I'm going to use that going forward. I like that.
Sorry.
Knowing the platform. I think that's incredibly important, and also knowing who your audience is. Right now, I've been programming on the Salesforce platform for, oh my God, it's frightening to think it's been almost like 15 years, right? And I'm a developer at heart. That's what I went to school for. But knowing that my customers, when we do work for them, they are not developers. So whatever I build for them, even if it addresses their immediate solution right now, if they can't maintain it themselves going forward, that's a challenge. Or if they have to pay for additional folks to maintain it going forward, that's going to be a challenge. So even though I love development, I love writing code, I can't think of a situation in the last several years where we had to go with code. Most of the stuff we've been able to do now is with Flow. They keep adding on to that functionality. And again, this is another one that we've had past conversations where we get into, or I've been the skunk of the party saying that flows is a better approach than triggers. But that's definitely a great point of view in that development is one thing, but the platform that you're building on, you have to know the basic capabilities, all the kind of, the different tools that are at your disposal and knowing which one to use. And after you understand flows and process builder or workflow and the basic platform itself, the objects, the schema, all that kind of stuff, if you come to the conclusion that the thing that I'm trying to do, coding is the best way to accomplish that, then that's okay. But to the point is you have to kind of do that analysis before you just use code as the kind of primary go-to. As far as being a developer, though, I think the part I might disagree with is that even if you had no idea about Salesforce at all, and you're not an admin, you have no idea how to build even a single flow, I do still think there's some benefits into learning development just as a practical skill. So whether that's JavaScript or something else, and doing those things in parallel, right? So maybe not building functionality on the platform that you're exposing to users, but at least starting that learning as quickly as you can. No harm there. But yeah, great points. Skunk at the party. The other one I heard yesterday, and I'm just going to throw this out there, is Elmo. Does anybody know what Elmo stands for? Enough, let's move on. I never heard that until yesterday. I like that. I wrote that down as well on the same piece of paper. All right, cool. No, it's great feedback. Anybody else comments or questions?
I would like to.
Yes, Bill, I know you're trying to move on. This last few minutes has been great for me. I'm looking at switching over, coming from a totally different field, over into becoming an admin. And from what I'm seeing, a lot of it's a lot of things out there important to learn some of those development skills. Stephen mentioned in the chat, it's important to make yourself competitive. So for coming in, trying to break the surf and make myself competitive, not coming from a tech background whatsoever. You guys have any advice for on that path, building those additional skills so you can get that good first job, and maybe some more also on the career path of what kinds of jobs put you in different positions for future skills?
Yeah.
If I can jump in.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
So this kind of ties back to the prior discussion about learning programming skills. I'm in the position now, I've been a programmer years ago. I haven't done full-time programming for quite a while. But I'm in a position now as a Salesforce consultant, which is primarily admin based, but I'm also being asked to look at triggers and not necessarily modify them, but to understand them, find out what's going on. And if the client were to bring in a bunch of records, would any of these triggers interfere with that import? And do we need to disable any of those triggers? So again, this is one of those things where I can sort of push this off onto the developers, but to set myself apart, if I have some knowledge about development in general, it goes a long way. Now, there's a lot of things in Apex that are specific and unique to Apex that, any knowledge of C# or anything like that is not going to do me a whole lot of good. But still, to say it does go a long way. So there's nothing wrong with learning the basics of programming in general, learning whether you learn it, like Bill said, doesn't really matter the language so much as you understand the constructs and the logic and so forth. A lot of the logic can be very confusing, even to developers, if you start getting into multiple knots and ands and ors and all that kind of stuff. It can be a mess. So the more that you can understand in that regard, I think the better off, the more competitive you'll be in the market, regardless if you're going to be a programmer to start with.
Yeah, so maybe I can just add on to that. So if I had to paraphrase what you just said and say that back, I would say that while you're developing your skills to be an admin on the Salesforce platform, going through some of those trailheads on Apex triggers and coding and things like that, while you might not sit down and just crack your knuckles and then start typing in code, as an admin, if there's some issue, you're getting an error message when somebody tries to save an account. It's helpful for you to know, okay, there's some automation that's running that's causing this error. I checked on workflow rules, there's nothing there. I checked in process builder, nothing there. All the flows look like they're performing okay and they're working. But is there anything else that's happening on the account object when somebody tries to save? And based on that trailhead you went through on triggers, enough that you can go and find the triggers, and enough that as you're looking through the code, you can generally have an idea of what's happening in that code that you might be able to say, okay, I think we found the problem. Now let's bring in somebody that can, actually do the development and fix it, right? But at least as an entry-level admin, having a basic understanding of Apex and the general construct of triggers and classes and things like that, while you might not sit down and type them out from scratch, it definitely would help in troubleshooting and just having a more complete understanding of the platform. So it's good.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. Actually, in fact, there's a module on Trailhead that says Apex for admins or Sockwell for admins or something. So it's it behoove someone to just check it out. It's really cool. Bill, just one quick thing. Are we allowed to ask you maybe challenges or something that we're having at work? Is that something allowed to talk about?
Yeah.
On this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You just have to credit me and I get 50% of any revenue you generate. So, no, you don't have to do that. But yeah, anything you got, that's fine.
So I am in the process of creating a user guide for a company, like how to, use Salesforce and, things like that, just step-by-step instructions for a system admin, how they would operate. Is there sort of like a good framework, if you may, that you recommend? Like not really a template, but kind of like maybe like a template or a guide at the same time as to like what kind of things you would want to include in that can help that user be better at their job and everything.
So to make sure I understand your question, this is a guide that you're trying to put together for admins to go off of, or this is a guide for individual users?
Like a user guide just generally, like if I'm making something on Salesforce, right, and they're going to be using Salesforce, right, they're not certified or anything at all, and I've kind of built some logic and things like that for them to do their job. Like where would I go for something like that? Just to
before I give you my response, I'll open it up. Does anybody have any feedback on that? Because from my side, go ahead, Kyle. Yeah. So
you can use in-app guidance to help guide them through. You could also create a screen flow if need be to really help them through. But in-app guidance is there to help you guide them through whatever you're trying to get them to do.
You could also use a help text in each of the fields, and that's one thing that's really ignored. Every field that you create that requires some kind of input, I once told a manager, think of that as invisible you telling the person what you want them to put in that field. It may be obvious to you, but to the end user, maybe not so much.
Yeah. So let me paraphrase everything that I just heard there. I think it's all great. So Andrew, when you're asking that question, I was kind of thinking in my mind, okay, how do I write documentation? Like, we have a support page, a website, things like that. But what folks are mentioning is that's kind of like step two. The functionality that you're building on the platform, there's built-in functionality for you to provide that assistance and that help and that guidance right there in the application. So for example, if you were creating a custom object and you had some flows and logic and things you were building on that, any fields that you're creating on that custom object, make sure to fill in the help text, and it'll show up there right as a little, dot next to the field name that they can hover over and they can get information about it. In your Lightning pages, not even getting into in-app guidance, but even just on a Lightning page, you have the ability to put a rich text block right on a page. So you can put some kind of user instructions there. There's the in-app guidance where you can actually have it where it's like little bubbles that are popping up in different parts of your application to give them feedback and cues and things like that. And then there's also What was the other one I was going to say? In-app guidance, the help text, text right on the page, and there was one other one, and it just went in one ear and out the other. Screen-based flows, I think somebody mentioned, where you can actually put kind of help information there as well. And it's going to kill me now because there was one other thing I was going to mention. Okay, it'll come back to me. But so anyway, just thinking about it in two kind of layers. You have the application help, right in context of what people. Oh, that's what it was. Path. I don't know if you're familiar with the path functionality in Salesforce. Think of an opportunity that has stages, and you can actually have that kind of guidance there. When you expand that path, it'll say like, okay, you're in the qualification stage, and here's what you should be doing in qualification stage, and here's the key fields you want to make sure you fill in. So that kind of stuff.
True. Right. Okay. Yeah. That is so true. Yeah. No, I was really good suggestion, but those are like more advanced. I was just thinking more about just like whip open a Word document kind of a thing and just like a template sort of because that's what we're doing. I mean, you know what I mean. It's just this is just something. I was just thinking about something just kind of more.
Well. To that point of that side of it, right? So just like writing documentation, I have two points on that. One, we just completely redesigned my company's internal website, and I've been writing support documentation and rewriting stuff for the last like 3 weeks. I'm sick of it. So I hate this topic just to begin with. I want to be upfront about it. But so that's one thing, just having a good something simple like a WordPress site where you can kind of link to different articles and things and that. But just generally speaking, whether you're doing it on WordPress, you have a Word doc, you have PowerPoint, whatever it is, kind of knowing who your audience is. I think that's the most critical part of it, right? So for example, when I'm writing documentation that is for the audience is developers, folks I know are going to be writing code and they're going to be they need like one little snippet from my code to incorporate into their existing code. I might word that, I might structure that help document a little bit different than somebody who is a user that's going to be using my application that might not even know a lot about Salesforce at all. So for that admin audience one, it might be just a numbered list, a code snippet, and some brief paragraph at the bottom. For the user, it might be a numbered list where I have screenshots for every single step, so they can actually see exactly what they're going to be clicking on, how it looks, what it looks like. So I think that's important. So Word, PowerPoint, WordPress, whatever it is, just knowing who the audience is and kind of speaking their language. So to speak.
Right. Yeah. And that's what I was talking about. That's what we're kind of right now doing is the screenshot and stuff. But to your point, I mean, that's what I'm doing, I think is a good start. But to take this another step further, that in-app guidance and that doing the little path thing, that's definitely, Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I had to pick, if you don't have like a website to update, if you're not using WordPress, if I had to pick between like Word or PowerPoint or any other kind of tool, I always tend to go back to PowerPoint. I really like that because it's just so much more flexible in adding your screenshots, dragging stuff around, drawing arrows to stuff. Any single time I try to add an image or like draw an arrow in Word, I don't know. Like I feel like I need to go get a master's in computer science just to like align my pictures in Word sometimes. So PowerPoint makes it super easy, easy to manage. The other thing too, when you're talking about relationships and getting into more detailed diagramming, we talked about this last week, but Lucid app or Lucid chart is another great one to, draw diagrams and flows and, walk people through swim lanes and paths about how they should be doing, making updates or, things like that. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely check out Lucid chart.
Hey, Bill, while you're talking about documentation, and I know you don't like it, does anybody have any recommendations on documenting your flow, not just in the flow itself, but maybe more of a technical document that you can keep on hand for the client, or just in like a config workbook, and it's really good documentation. I'd love to see what others are doing. Right now, I'm just doing it inside the descriptions, and I don't feel like that's enough. Lucid chart's another option as well.
Yeah, I honestly, I think that's a big gap right now in the flow designer itself. I would love to have the ability to be able to draw boxes or put like a note section or sticky note, things like that, just so you can kind of start planning out stuff. But I think this is a great here. Let me, I'm just going to share my screen. Let me just see if I can do this real quick. So here's my org. And do I have any flows in here? It'd be great if I did. Let's see. So what I might do is take something like this, which has probably got like one block in it, so it's not going to be useful at all. But okay, yeah, one block. Well, let's just go with it, right? So, if you take a screenshot of that block or that giant flow that you have, I could see how you might take that into Lucidchart. And if I do new, let's just go to this one. This is blank. So you could just take your screenshot of your flow, that big diagram that you got, and then assuming this renders here, I can come in here, paste in that screenshot. So you imagine this has like all kinds of connectors, and there's, you have different sections and everything else. And then they have not only just like simple things like a sticky note that you could put in there and start typing some text in there that details what that thing does. But they also have, let me see if I can find them here. They have like these, like this kind of thing. Like you could say, okay, like, it's got like a big bracket, and then you could put some note about this section. You know what I mean? So like when you look at this, and you can see that I'm kind of fumbling around with this, but you know what I mean? Like you can have that big thing and then start putting notes like on top of that screenshot. Not ideal. It'd be a lot cooler if you could do that within the flow builder itself, but just having that kind of diagram and then putting in some notes about the generalized flow and how it should work, and drawing arrows and adding additional boxes around things. I could see how that could be pretty useful.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah. All right, cool. Anybody have any other questions about not documentation? Because we all know I don't like documentation, but no, any questions in general? I'll just open it up. Fair game. Any other topics or questions, work issues, anything anybody wants to talk through?
I think you killed the conversation with your comments about documentation.
Sorry, guys. Hey,
Bill,
Megan,
I've
yeah.
got a question.
Sure.
I'm working on something for a client where they need an integration into Salesforce communities that's HIPAA compliant, where they're storing files that can't be seen by anybody else. I've never worked with communities yet.
Yeah.
I've done some research and I've come across Box. I mean, I've used Box, but I'm just wondering if anybody on here has any leads, like apart from Box, that might be a good fit for this requirement.
So storing documents that are HIPAA sensitive personal information type documents through a community.
Yes, so they'll have their own customers logging in to this documentation through their community, and they need to be able to access all of their files. That it's an ongoing process with they'll be uploading new files all the time, and I just want to see if there are other options that somebody is already using that they really like.
I personally have not worked with anything even close to what you're describing. Managing documents and files through a community making sure that they're super secure. So anybody on the call have any experience with that? Are you required to implement this essentially like as the team, as like you guys are doing the implementation, or are you looking to bring in a partner that could do this?
We're doing it.
Okay. Yeah, because I do have there was one Salesforce implementation partner that we referred to one of our clients, and they specifically worked within the healthcare industry, and they kind of had that that privacy kind of mindset going in, and they built communities and things like that. But personally, no, I have not worked in that. I would hate to even give you advice because I'd be afraid that I'd be part of a HIPAA investigation sometime in next year or two. But
no worries.
yeah, Kyle, do you have a comment?
Yeah, Megan, are you part of the Ohana Slack?
I am, yes.
I would say they've got I just looked, they've got a channel for cloud health. You can ask them. There's got to be somebody in the Ohana Slack that can point you in the right direction.
Perfect. Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kyle, have you worked with Health Cloud at all? Like the that actual slice of Salesforce?
No, all NPSP.
Okay. Yeah. Health Cloud's another one of these animals I've never even touched or looked at or have any experience with. It might not be a bad idea just to get somebody to come in and kind of talk to us about it. I'll add that to my list under skunk at a party. Okay. Any other comments or questions anybody wants to go through?
Bill, this is Greg. I attended the architectural salesforce.com. They had a video just recently on the 4 different levels of presentation, of documentation. There's one on the 15th, April 15th, and then there's a trailhead for architectural. So I haven't looked at the trailhead other than you have to log in, and I guess you watch videos, but they're going to deploy these tools as free as part of your Salesforce licensing is what I've seen.
Yeah, so we had spoke about this last week here. Let me just pull it up real quick. But if you look at architect.salesforce.com, great site, a lot of great resources here. And specifically what you're talking about is the, I want to say, where did they actually speak to that? Let me see, not decision guides, but they basically, there's a section of this where they talk about the different levels, like levels 1 through 4. I'll have to dig it up, but this site in general, just kind of clicking around here, it's actually pretty great.
And there's a trailhead as well. I haven't dug into it other than I looked at the recommended or all the different sessions that they had for the architectural trailhead.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to find that specific one I was looking at. But yeah, I think this is super helpful. The fact if they start providing Lucid as a as free if you already have a license, that'd be very nice. But yeah, any of those diagrams that they have on this site, you can actually download them into Lucid directly. So if like you click into this retail one, you can actually go to open a Lucid chart, and now you have an editable template for that particular part of the Salesforce platform that you can start making customizations and adding your own stuff into. It's pretty slick. There you go. So yeah, that's pretty good. All right, cool. Anything else? Any other questions, comments for today? All right. I have on my list here for perhaps next week. I'm trying to put this together, but is anybody on the call familiar with Snow Fakery?
Heard of it, haven't used it.
Okay. It is, well, for this week anyway, the coolest thing that you have ever seen. All right. So I watched the presentation on this week. And of course, I have my whole week planned out, all the stuff I have to get done. As I watch this presentation, I had to push everything and just like focus on this. But Snow Fakery, it's a tool that you can use. It's a command line based tool that you can create a very simple file that says, okay, in my sandbox, developer copy sandbox, I have no data in there. I want the ability to create account objects, and I want to create 50 of them. And I want to have in the first name field, or like contact records, first name would be randomized first names. Last name field is randomized last names. And then basically every field that you have on the account object that you would want to have populated, they have the ability to tie that into fake, realistic looking data. So to create 10, 100, a million records, you can have a text file that looks very small, very short, where you're just basically building the overall definitions, hit go, and it creates all that test data in your Salesforce work for you. And it even supports things like relationships. So you can create accounts. I want to create 30 accounts, and then for every account I want to create 4 contacts and maintain all the relationships and create all that stuff. So very small text file, whole bunch of test data that gets populated into your sandbox. So for admins, especially those that work for smaller companies that might not have a full copy sandbox or might not have the ability to create a bunch of partial copy sandboxes, starting off with that Developer Pro, those free small sandboxes, and being able to pump a bunch of test data in there so you can use it for testing out your automations and functionality. It's pretty slick. So I think that's what we're going to focus on for next week. But otherwise, unless anybody has any final questions.
Hey, Bill, for that in-app guidance, there's no other permission sets or anything you need for that. It's available in every org, right?
Great question. So here's what I do. Here, I'll share my screen. So for things that I have absolutely no idea on, which that's quite a bit, I do Salesforce in-app guidance, and I always put Salesforce help in-app guidance, and then it should take you to the Salesforce help article, and pretty much any piece of functionality in Salesforce. When you go to the help site, they always have a block at the top that gives you the restrictions, or the things that you have to be aware of.
Yeah.
And of course, the one thing I search for here, it's going to be the exception to that rule. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, what did I break here? Okay, in-app guidance. Okay, so let's click on that thing. Yeah, so let's see, considerations for in-app guidance. What I was going to say, yeah, right here. So this section here. So it'll tell you like required additions and permission that you require to use that functionality. So, you can't use it for chatter external or chatter free. It's available in these editions. So it looks like pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
It's available in Lightning Experience. And then the permissions needed, that's where it would say like, what permissions do you need to either create them, or the permissions that you would need to potentially walk through them. So yeah, that should break it down. But if you search for Salesforce help and then whatever topic you want, pretty much every one of those articles you're going to come across is going to have this section at the top that outlines what you need or what permissions that are required.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Bill, do you have the link for that snowfakery?
Yeah. And yeah, the presenter that did it, I actually just reached out to her on LinkedIn. She gave an awesome presentation. But let me see if I can get I actually have it on my email. They have you can use it for not just Salesforce. You can use it for a whole bunch of other stuff too, which is pretty cool.
Bill, when you use the word snow, I was thinking about the AWS snowball thing that they have. The huge data.
Yeah, different than that, or maybe it's different than that. I don't know.
No, it is.
All right, so this is here. I'll give you a couple of things in the chat here. This is a recording. If I can find you guys, here you are. All right, so this is the recording of the video or the presentation, and this is, let's see. So generate realistic data sets with snowfakery. I'll just post this whole thing here. Why not? Okay, so this is the full list of links. Oh, of course, you tell me these links aren't going to work when I paste them here. Oh, that's lame. Okay. Build applications, connect. Snowfakery recipes. Oh, I'm trying to find if I had to post one link here, what's the best one? Repository of snowfakery recipes. Okay. Maybe, yeah, I would say start with the video that I posted there, and then here's the actual recipes that are Salesforce specific that kind of give you some ideas. But yeah, random dates, between 1 year ago and today, numbers between 24 and 7. Like you can actually set up your test data with some really cool variables and stuff. Yeah, and it's part of the open source commons. So I'll throw this in the chat as well. Yeah, but definitely a great tool. I'm hoping that we might be able to get that speaker as a guest speaker here the next couple of weeks.
It's not in the chat, Bill, if you shared it.
Oh, really? Oh, I'm pasting all these things to the waiting room. Okay, let's try that again. All right, bear with me. Friday afternoon here, folks. Everyone in meeting. There we go.
Thank you. I shared Search the Force, just so if anybody hasn't used it, it's a Google search for all Salesforce stuff. It takes out everything that's not Salesforce related. So it's a really good resource, so you don't have to sift through all the Google junk.
Nice. All right, cool. All right, guys, another great week. Hope everybody has a great weekend, and we'll catch up next week. Thanks for all the feedback and the conversation.
Thanks, Bill. Have a good one.
All right, see y'all.
Thanks, Bill.